Hi, I'm Amanda Wood, and in this video we're going to learn how to make wallflowers like this out of Pal Tiya. A lot of ceramic artists make these abstracted wallflowers that you hang on the wall out of porcelain, but of course you need a kiln to be able to do that. And if you don't have a kiln at home, you can make something similar out of Pal Tiya, and it will be just as strong, if not stronger. I painted it with a good quality craft paint and highlighted the edges with a soft metallic gold paint. On the back side, I've embedded some paper clips to hang them on the wall, and I'll show you how I did it. You'll need some scrap cardboard, some aluminum foil, hot glue gun and glue, a couple of bags of Pal Tiya. You'll need some nitrile or rubber gloves in case you're allergic to the rubber gloves. You can do the nitrile, they're nice to have. I have this trowel and a little wax spreading spatula, and I'll have links to where to get all of these on my links below. So I like this spatula because I can bend it a little bit and it's a little bit rounded, and it's nice for burnishing and smoothing a rounded edge on things. I really like this tool a lot. It's one of my favorites. You'll need a fork, just any ordinary kitchen fork will do, and this is just for scoring the clay with and getting a texture. Any kind of a kitchen spoon, but don't use a really good one because it'll get all crusty. I like these clay smoothing tools. They call it a rib or just a smoothing tool, and you can curve it and wrap it around a shape and it gets a nice smooth texture. I've also got a couple of sheets of sandpaper here. It's 220 grit. I like the 220 grit best. If I use a more coarse sandpaper, it starts gouging up the surface, and this just sands it without gouging it up and pulling it away, and you end up with hard marks in the clay, and then you have to work that much harder to get the marks out. So on the backs of these things, I embedded some paper clips so that you could hook it and get it on the wall. So I'll show you in a second how I did that. So we clipped it. I'll show you here. So I clipped it and then I bent the tips, and the tips I bent so that it would hook into the clay and not just pull out like a little post would. So it's really in there, and then when it hangs on the wall with the weight won't pull it off and pull it away. So I made these forms out of cardboard. You can see that I kind of cut slits all the way around and used tape to form them in an upward motion. And then with the tin foil, I've added some more ripples and shifts. Here's the paper clip thing that I was talking about. So I've clipped it and I bent the wires up, and I've got some oil clay here, or some people call it plasticine or plastiline, depending on where you are and what you're using. You could even use Play-Doh or even tinfoil, cover it up with tinfoil. I'm making a little pocket so that the nail, when it goes into the back, will have a little place to have a seat into. And we'll pull this stuff out later when the clay is set. And then making some for each of them. And the tinfoil is there to make the cardboard watertight, and also the crumpled tinfoil gives the Pal Tiya something nice to grip onto. Now I'm adding 2 cups of Pal Tiya and a 1/4 cup of water and mixing it up in a mixer. If you're worried about kicking up a lot of dust, just cover it with a towel. Now I can see from working with this that my clay has a really nice consistency. It's not too wet, it's not too dry. If it's too dry, it's going to start cracking, and you'll see that right away. If it's too wet, it's going to be kind of sloppy, and it won't hold a form, and it starts kind of lathering up as you work with it, and then the fibers come out. And when that happens, it starts getting really chalky, and it'll dry like mud, and it'll never cure properly. It'll break apart like mud too. So getting your mix right is imperative, absolutely imperative. So too dry, add a little bit more water. Too wet, add a little bit more powder and remix it, and then you're good to go. So you want to smooth this in with your hands. You can use that smoothing rib that I've talked about, that red smoothing rib, and also the trowel. I guess I just didn't feel like getting up and getting all my stuff. I was just using my fingers here. So at this point, we're ready to wrap it up and let them sit overnight, and wrap them individually. Let them set overnight, and then the next day, we're going to unwrap everything. I lost some footage, but I did want to tell you that we flipped it over, filled the back in with Pal Tiya, and then we picked out that piece of oil clay that was making a pocket for the nail hole. At this point, I'm doing a little bit of sanding. It's got some rough spots on it, and it's just a little bit rougher than I would want it to be. So I've got my 220 grit sanding paper, and I'm just sanding down some of the rough spots. Now that we got it all sanded, I'm wrapping it in a wet paper towel, and we're going to let that soak in a wet paper towel for about 5 days. And 5 days will make this strong as stone. It's going to have sort of a chemical reaction with the water, and it's going to grow microscopic crystals within the interior of this piece, so that's going to make it rock hard. Now you won't be able to see any of those crystals. This is all happening on a molecular level under the surface. But yeah, this will be so strong that you could basically do anything with it. Probably the only thing that I've seen that you wouldn't be able to do is eat off of it. Now I'm going to torch this off. It's got those fibers that come to the surface, so you just want to burn those off so it doesn't mess up your paint. Make sure you're moving your torch quickly so the Pal Tiya doesn't crack or pop off in layers. Since this is an indoor piece, I'm just going to paint it with some regular old craft paint. Now I want this to have a gold shimmer around the edges just to give it a little bit more life. So I'm taking a paintbrush with some gold paint, and I'm doing something called dry brushing. And I'm cleaning off the brush and getting some of that gold paint off as I go, and then just brushing the surface to give it a little texture. And there's the hook in the back, and I felted the back. That way it won't put marks on the wall when we hang it. And here we are with the final piece, and all 6 of them are hanging on the wall. I think they look beautiful. I'm so happy with the way they turned out. To make hanging this easier, I took a large sheet of paper and put marks where all the holes were going to go, and then hung it up on the wall and transferred the marks to the wall. Thanks for tuning in, and I hope you give this really cool product a try. It's been a game changer for me. If you like this video, be sure to like and subscribe, and be sure to get notifications when I put out new content.